Gabriel not ready. Board Member Aranda. Board Member Korea.
Here.
Board Member Maderos.
Here.
Board Member Pisano.
Here.
And Chair DeBreeze.
Here, thank you, Liz. Okay, first item up. First item for on our agenda tonight is to elect a new chair and vice chair. Let's start with chair. Are there any nominations? This is for a one-year term.
I'd like to make a motion to keep things the way they are. Second.
Okay. Anything from you, Ida? No? Okay. All in favor of that, or you've made a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
And just to clarify, we have Chair DeBreeze and Vice Chair Maderos.
Oh, okay, great. Excellent.
I don't know if that was legal for me to do that.
I think it cuts to the chase nicely. We whacked A and B with one swoop. Okay, each time we set aside a minute to discuss things that are not going to be on the agenda, public comments for items not on the agenda. I don't see any raised hands, Liz, do you?
No, no hands raised.
Okay, there are none here in chambers. So we'll move on to the consent agenda, which is the affidavit of posting and the minutes. The minutes I know were sent to us by the clerk this afternoon. I trust everybody had a chance to look at them. If not, let us know. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the minutes for the November 7th, 2023.
And does that include the affidavit of posting as well, dude?
It does.
Okay, there's a motion. Oh, thank you. There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, 5, action. Consider the phase 2 historic report for 609 3rd Street. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Chairman. Happy to provide a brief staff report and introduce Meg Clovis, the city's contract service provider for historical surveys such as this. Meg is an expert and she brings to us a great value in reviewing historic properties. So Meg is the one who put this report together and I'll let her walk you through it for you. Okay, Meg?
Thank you, Meg. Welcome.
Where'd she go?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can hear me. Okay, good. Okay. This is a rear addition to a circa 1860 small house. The house grew over time. By 1908, there had been several additions to it, to the rear of the house. And then in 1942, there was an additional bedroom and bath added onto the house. The additions that were built by 1908 are considered significant to the house. The 1942 addition is not a significant addition. The proposed addition to the house is very small. It includes a small deck, but it's going to be attached to the 1942 addition. So it's not going to be impacting any of the historic material of the house. The design is consistent with the rest of the house, which is a very simple but significant house. And I don't know what else to add. Do you have any questions about the addition?
I have a question.
Sure.
Just as a clarification, because it does say in one part of the report that it's a shed. the proposed project will convert the shed on the rear elevation into a studio. When I think about a shed, it's separate from the building, but in the pictures or photos shown, it looks like the shed is part of the house as an extension. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so. Okay, thank you.
Well, I think that's a good question. So the shed is connected to the interior of the home. How? They just share a common wall, Meg?
The shed is connected to the 1942 addition.
How? Just by a common wall? A
Yes.
stud wall? Okay.
So it's an extension and there's not a thoroughfare from the primary home to the proposed project.
Right, that's the question.
Okay, and then.
Well, no, is that true?
There's a separate entrance that will go into the new addition.
But right now, can you get from the house to the shed or the shed to the house with the
No,
picture?
no, you have to go outside.
I see. Okay.
Okay, and then another question is the proposed studio to serve as housing? Or is it a studio to be used by the primary residence?
No, it's for the primary residence.
So it's not going to be a rental?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Meg from Tony or David?
Yeah, I was looking at the recommendations and determinations that was included, and those are the conditions. And one of the other conditions I was thinking about that should be added to it would be the condition in which and determinations when things go wrong, when it comes to working with an historical resource, and we have problems like we had with one of our owners where a wall collapsed and what have you. Shouldn't it be another condition that says that in the event something happens, we notify the city that we think we're going to have problems to continue with the project or complete the project? I know it's in the municipal code, what have you. But I wonder in the permitting process, should we include some kind of statement that gives instructions as to where we go from there?
I'm going to let Don answer that one.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to, Meg. In discussing this, and I want to introduce our two planners who are joining us today, Adriana Ortiz and Magda Gonzalez. Hi, Adriana. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're just reviewing the historic report tonight and approving that, hopefully. And then we'll come back with a whole separate planning commission item on this same project, and we'll look at the conditions more closely. So with that suggestion, we're happy to follow up and draft some language for the next consideration.
That sounds like a good plan. What do you think of that, David?
Yes, thank you.
Any other board member questions for Meg, Don, anything? Otherwise, we'll open up public comment.
One
yes,
last
sure.
question. This is just in reading the process of what we're supposed to do. It says that Historic Resources Board review and Planning Commission approval are both required prior to building permit issuance. My question is basically, does the city supersede the county regarding building permits?
No, the building codes are strictly locally approved and adopted. In fact, they were just updated a year ago.
Locally meaning city.
City, right, not county. They have their own set,
So county can't come in and say we didn't do it right.
correct. They can say anything they want.
That and $3 will get them a cup of coffee at Vertigo.
I just didn't want to not ask.
But
that.
don't leave out the $3 because otherwise no one cares. Okay, any other board member questions, comments? Okay, public comment there is then open. Are there any members of the public? Any members of the comment who want to public? Kara, do you have your hand up?
I just want to let you know how much fun and how we didn't get a lot of the things that the house was doing. With Ms. Pelosi's expertise in safety. The thing to be a little bit of history about the house. The house was first built by Mr. Augusto Morales, and he was living in a residence in 1860, so that's the big problem in the house. He was an immigrant from Italy, and he married a lady named Gertrudis Cantor. And her father had important positions. He was also the Soledad Richmond for a while, and portions of his ranch became Salinas. I believe it was Alisal that way. Then there were actually only two families that lived there for a very long time. So the next one was Ruben Lopez.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. So the next family, that was Ruben Lopez of Quien Sabe Ranch, and he married Juana Alvarado. I'm kind of interested in the women. And she was a descendant of the first Mexican governor of Alta California. And they had a lot of kids, but their one daughter, Dina Marie Lopez Burke, she lived in the house until shortly before her death in the 1990s. She was a real character. I've gotten all kinds of reports from family members. She loved to entertain, especially men. And apparently she was a lot of fun, and she would dress in crazy clothes and all of that. And she lived to be in her 90s. So we purchased the house in 2000 because it was historic. I've always been interested in historic preservation and member of a lot of various organizations.
No,
Yeah. Huh?
you haven't?
We bought it, yeah.
We
That's
count
a
on your,
joke, right?
that was sarcasm and a silly way of saying we appreciate all you do for historic
So
preservation.
the house was really a wreck when we got it. I hope I'm not offending anybody. Anyway, we brought it up. We had a foundation put under it. It was just sitting on mud sills when we bought it. And they were in good condition, big, redwood beams. And then, so we put in the new foundation, we put in new plumbing, electrical, insulation where we could. We did much of the work ourselves with a lot of YouTube videos. I actually stripped the entire house inside and out to get rid of any of the lead that might be there. And anyway, we're pretty proud of our accomplishments. It is a 1-bedroom. So there's a decrepit old laundry room, and as you indicated, you can't access it from the main house. There's a door, you have to go on the deck and around. So we want to make this small 134 square foot studio where my husband can hang out. He wants a man cave. So that's the idea. And there'll be some beds in there in case we have guests. So our architect did make changes to the plans as suggested by Ms. Clovis. And, we had discussed them and we think they're all great ideas. So our architect did make the changes, and I was kind of hoping that we could now submit the plans to start the permit process instead of waiting until the next meeting. I'm not sure if that's possible. We will be on vacation. That's one issue. We're in a tour group for the next Tuesday, first Tuesday of March meeting. So anyway, our architect is Luis Machain, and he did make all the corrections. I think David's idea, if something should go wrong, having something reporting to the city, I think that's an excellent idea because, all that happened with our neighbor. So I'm pretty amenable to that. We don't anticipate anything bad happening. So there is a picture of that shed on page 4 of the report. It's really in bad condition. So that's my pitch. Thank you for everything, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. Before we move on to any other public speakers, what is the Recommendation for tonight, Don, is just to pass it on to the planning commission, isn't it? For the next planning commission hearing?
Right, to approve it, recommend approval to the
Okay.
planning commission.
And Kara mentioned a concern that something having to do with the revisions to the plans might delay that, but I don't think there's a reason to delay the referral to the planning commission tonight, is there?
No,
Okay,
but I think, as I understood her, she wants to submit the building plans now, while we're still reviewing the building itself, and so I don't know if Adriana wants to speak to that. I don't see much harm in submitting them sooner than later, but.
So if she does do a concurrent filing, it would still, we couldn't issue building permits until the planning portion had been reviewed thoroughly. And that's looking at some of the items that you guys brought up tonight, along with whatever else is outlined in the municipal code. So once we find that it is compliant with the code, and then we give the okay for building permits to be released. At that point, they could be reviewing at the same time, but if there are any changes, they're gonna have to resubmit to building. So there is a risk for the applicant in having to resubmit plans that are updated.
They were updated.
well, yeah, but sure, yeah, but so just come on up but let me ask this question,
Okay.
Adriana. It seems like there might be some benefit to having plans submitted now for permit review, since that review, in my experience, takes a little while. It's not over the counter. So what would be the harm in having the review of the plans start? In other words, a double track.
Yeah, it would be a concurrent filing.
Yeah,
If they did a concurrent filing, so like I said, the building permits would be held until the planning permits or the planning portion was completed.
Mhm.
If there are any changes on the planning portion, if we flag anything as we're reviewing it, which we don't really foresee anything that we'd have issues with.
Mhm.
We did a really light preliminary review. We didn't do a very in-depth view yet. But if something were to come up and she would have to make changes to the building plans that she had already submitted,
Right.
we have to resubmit.
Sure.
That is the risk that the applicant is taking.
Right.
When you say planning has to look at it, which planning are we talking about? Are we talking
Her.
about the 4-leaf planning?
Yes.
So,
right.
Oh,
yeah, for all intents and purposes, 4-leaf is acting as your planning division. So it would be like having an on-site planner that worked for the city. So we review it in the same capacity as if we were city employees.
okay.
Yeah, so you're gonna get a staff report, you're gonna have a full presentation. We're looking at your setbacks and everything else that may come into play for any project that would involve a planning component to it.
So
Okay, so maybe that's what we need to do.
what?
I don't know.
Just submit your plans now. So they can start looking at them for the
Okay,
permit.
but are there costs involved?
Yes.
Yes. so
Like
they-
how many, like 1 million sets of plans and
Well, they can tell you all that. There's
we prefer you not have to bring your multiple sets of plans until you're bringing it to planning commission. Then at that point, you're bringing it to planning commission for them to review it. My recommendation is always, just to go through the regular process of, go through the planning process, and we're working with building the entire time as well. So that when you do submit to building, it's usually a pretty seamless experience. Plus, so we have a good working relationship with building.
okay, so you're recommending it just go to planning? I mean, can we just email the plans to planning?
Yes, at this point, yes, you can. So if we may ask for additional information from you.
okay.
That would be like an incomplete letter. You'll get a whole list of stuff that we still need. But if you
Okay.
want to go ahead and forward the information that you already have, then we can at least start the process.
Okay, without, yeah,
so I think Ida has a question.
okay.
Sorry, because most of the standards have been met with the exception of standard 9. Can you clarify? It's about the window and it's about the French doors.
Yeah,
If those two were cleared as far as, determination of which one you're going to put in play.
we already put that in the plan. I
you did?
emailed
So
out
because-
revised plans, and so it's got the double hung single pane window. It's got the French doors. Oh, I forgot what the other thing was that was recommended.
Okay, because that's not what I have.
Well, I emailed it separately as an attachment.
Okay, okay, that's right, you did, thank you.
Yeah, so all those changes were all made in the revised plan.
Okay.
But if planning is just gonna kind of like looking at it and saying, oh, we still need this and that, instead of, full sets, I think that is the better way to go. Can it just be submitted to planning? For
Yeah, so
their
you can,
comment?
yeah, you could submit them to planning. So
Okay.
right now, we're looking at the historic portion to be, basically, they're gonna concur with Meg's, report, saying that they agree with the report, and the historic nature of the building and this type of design moving forward. And then the next step is we bring it to Planning Commission, from the Planning Division. And we do a presentation and we tell you guys, kind of like Meg did, except we do our own presentation and say, well, they're meeting all the standards, all the setbacks that are outlined, and we recommend approval at that point.
Yeah, okay, let's just do the regular process. And we'll see how it goes forward. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Any other members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? I don't see any raised hands. Liz, do you? All right. If not, public comment is closed. Any further comments from board members? If not, we'll entertain a motion to refer this to the Planning Commission for further consideration.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Kara, and thank you, Adriana. Okay, agenda item 6. Consider the phase 2 historic report. Or no, I'm sorry. Let's do 5 all over again. Sorry, mate. Historic Resources Preservation Code 1106 update and status. Don, do you want to start us off on that, or do we go right to Meg, or what's?
We can go right to Meg. If you all have any questions on the staff report, I'd be happy to respond.
Okay. Meg, take it away.
Okay, so you all read Don's staff report, and as you know, I had reviewed the historic preservation ordinance. Oh, it's probably about a year ago now, and making some suggestions to strengthen the ordinance. Principal problems, it's not necessarily problems. The ordinance itself is in good shape, but it just needs to have more detail in terms of integrating the context statement within the code, as well as the contents for your phase 1 and phase 2 reports. Each jurisdiction usually has specific things that they want to see in their phase 1 and phase 2 reports and in certain formats. There's lots and lots of jurisdictions that could serve as models for San Juan Bautista, so you do not need to reinvent the wheel here. One of the things that I feel, especially since I've been doing some of these reports, like the phase 1 reports for this city, is that the context statement really needs to be updated. What the context statement is lacking at this point is what I call the guts of the context statement. It's actually the entire purpose of the context statement. So you got Marie Nelson's writing historic context statements in your packet. Marie Nelson worked at OHP. She was considered the queen of context statements. And I was lucky enough to work with her on 5 context statements for Monterey County. But basically, there have been no eligibility requirements and integrity thresholds set up in the current context statement. Those are the things that will let you know or how to evaluate whether a property is significant or not, and what characteristics of integrity it needs to be considered a candidate for the historic register. So usually context statements are done by consultants. And I would make that recommendation to you as well, but to have this project funded through a CLG grant. Right now, the city is not eligible to apply for a CLG grant because last year's CLG report was not submitted. Don also mentioned in his report that I'm currently working on those CLG reports. You'll be seeing those CLG reports at your next meeting in March for your approval. But one of the things that we need to consider is the very first question in the CLG reports is, are you considering making changes to your ordinance? And so that's what we're discussing tonight, whether or not you would like to entertain making changes to the ordinance. What I would suggest is a subcommittee of the Historic Resources Board, and I would work with you directly. We'd come back with a draft for the full board to consider. I think that's pretty much what I have to say right now. I think maybe I'll return it to you if you have specific questions. I do want to make one more statement, though. If you do want to make any changes to your ordinance, before it can go to City Council for adoption, it has to first go to the State Office of Historic Preservation for review to make sure that the ordinance meets all the criteria of a CLG.
So how long
So
does that process take, Meg?
how long? Well, I'd say a good 6 months.
6 months.
Yes, and that includes getting all the approvals. Now, I know when I've done this before, because I've updated the County of Monterey's ordinance maybe 3 times, and we got really stuck, held up when we had to send it to council. I have been told that that's not going to be a problem in San Juan Bautista, but the approvals process, it has to go through, several levels of approvals, and it could get stuck at one of those levels.
Are there costs incurred in trying to make those changes?
I personally think that we could do it
Because,
just within my current contract costs.
okay, because you said it, we don't qualify for the CLG grant
You will by April
by April of this year.
of this year, because we're going to submit, you're going to see the CLG reports next month. And once those are submitted to OHP, San Juan Bautista will be a CLG in good standing once again, and therefore eligible to apply for funding. However, I would suggest in terms of applying for funding for CLG, it's probably better to apply for funding to do the context statement, because that is an expensive proposition.
With regards to the subcommittee recommendation that you've made, how many, is there a specific number to have for the subcommittee?
Less than a quorum, so you don't have to meet Brown Act considerations.
2.
So it'd be 2, yes.
Thank you.
Any other board member questions? David, anything?
No.
Tony, nothing? Let's open it up for public comment, and wait, before I do, any questions for a city manager also? Or anything you want to add to make comments, Don?
No, that's a good discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment then is open. Kara Ball?
I just want to mention how important it is to get the context statements because we're missing some. And one of them has to do with the rise of automobile tourism, which I believe was around the 1920s or 1930s. We don't have that in our context statement. And I don't think Vanda is here, but I believe she mentioned that there were like 14 gas stations downtown, as well as car repair shops and things of that nature. You know, when people were buying cars and going out, and El Camino went right down, you know, our main street here. So that's one that's missing. And another one that's missing are like the warehouse utility buildings that we have, all of the metal, you know, the potato shed, nylons, Teatro Campesino. I think there's another one on 4th Street. I mean, they're kind of spread out all over. And we kind of discovered that when this project came up across from JJ's. So that's another one that we're missing. And maybe there are others, you know, once we start thinking about it. So yeah, I think it's really important because that's the basis for claiming that things are historic.
Sure.
Thank you.
That, you know, Kara, your excellent comments prompted a question that I have for Meg. In this concept of a subcommittee, Meg, I'm assuming that there wouldn't be anything preventing 2 HRB members on the committee, but also a public at large position.
Right. It would be, I'd say it would probably be advisable to have a public at large person.
I think so too. And I'm not sure who I would recommend, but her name might rhyme with Shmara Monk. Or Vanda. Yeah. You guys do? For general membership or board of directors? Maybe that's something you can, I think you should, don't you? Okay. Any other public comments? Seeing none, back to the board. Why don't we do this first? What does the board think of the suggestion to form a subcommittee? Good idea, bad idea? And if it's a good idea, yeah, same thing. Okay. You like the idea? Okay. So then, seems like a good idea to me. Ida, you too?
Yes.
Any-
Participation, always good.
Always. Anyone feel so moved to raise their hand to be on a subcommittee or express a desire to do that kind of work?
I'll do it.
Okay, we have Ida. David or Tony? Okay, I'll do it with you, Ida.
Okay.
Would it just have to come from us?
Yeah, for the HRB part of it, but yeah, but okay. But we just had that we just made that comment about having a public person on there, so hopefully we can pull someone from the Historical Society that's super knowledgeable about this stuff, like Vanda or Kara, for example. And Kara's gonna bring that up at the board of directors meeting tomorrow, it sounds like. Can you just shoot me an email with what that happens at that meeting? And then I'll get it to Liz and Dawn and whomever.
Our meeting is at 2:00 in the late afternoon, so let you know after our meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Kara. Okay, well then, why don't we get a motion to establish the Historic Resources Board Subcommittee with Ida and myself as committee members and a third public at-large position to be named specifically at a later date, pending input from the historic resources. Yeah, talk. I've been talking all day. My talker's broken. Pending further input from the Historical Society and under the tutelage and guidance of Meg Clovis. Is there a motion like that?
Excuse me, Chair, we didn't agendize as a action item, but you
Yes.
can just make the recommendation
Yeah, I mean, it's just the establishment of a subcommittee, so, and it's not, why don't we do this then? Let's do a motion for recommendation. And then at the next HRB, so that would be March, we'll have the at-large person from the Historical Society. And then Liz, if you can agendize it for action, we'll formalize the appointments to this subcommittee. How does that sound? Does that sound right, Don? Okay,
So moved.
okay, second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Great. Thank you, Meg. Very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, next. Is there anything next? No. 7 comments from the Historic Resources Board members and the city manager. Let's do board members first. Any comments from Tony, David, or Ida? No. I have one, and it's a request for the March HRB agenda. I would like to have agendized as a discussion item. And Meg, I think that your participation in this discussion and preparation for it would be vital. But I'd like to take up the issue of signage in our historic district. I personally have received a number of complaints from community members about signage, advertising, things like that are taking place within the historic district. And the sentiment is that they are not compliant. I would like to have a better understanding of what compliant is and what compliant is not. Also, I'd like to discuss what ramifications there are if signage is deemed to be non-compliant. For example, is that a code violation? Is something prepared and sent to the business owner? And then lastly, I'd also like to include in that discussion, under the heading of signage, window decorations, including lighting. Again, I've had a number of complaints directed to me personally about this issue. So I think it's something we can take a look at and make corrections as necessary. But first we have to understand the ins and outs of that a little bit better. Let's see, Tony's nodding. Did everyone agree with having a talk about that? Okay. So that's my request. I don't think it needs a motion or anything. Any others? If there are not, then city manager comments.
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we should entertain a motion to adjourn the HRB. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn? I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Adriana, and thank you, Meg.
You're welcome.
5-minute break to second motion before launching this piece.
Yes. I
Auto break.
Everybody ready?
Yes.
So just quick programming note. Jose's got stuck in San Jose. We don't have a vice chair formally. Was talking with Liz when I came to pick up my binder and said I'd be happy to run this unless and until a new chair is appointed, which we're gonna do first up, so. To explain why I'm doing this, so shall we rise and pledge our allegiance to the flag? Ida, do you want to lead us?
Yes.
Great.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Correa,
Here.
Commissioner Maderos,
Here.
Commissioner Pisado,
Here.
Commissioner DeBreeze acting as chair,
Here.
and Chair Aranda is absent.
Okay, as indicated, first up is election of a chair and vice chair for a one-year term. Let's start with chair. Any nominations?
Yeah, I would like to nominate Jose Aranda for chair.
Second.
There's been a nomination and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Jose has 1 year additional tour of duty. Okay, next, vice chair. Any nominations?
Yeah, nominate Ida.
Second.
There's been a nomination and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Ida is the vice chair. Great. Next is, yeah. Next is the consent agenda, which consists of the affidavit of posting and the minutes of October 3rd and 7th.
I think at this point, Ada would take over, right?
Oh, that's right. do you want to do
Ade's
it?
not here.
You're running the meeting.
I would, oh, hey.
You're the vice chair. The planning committee.
Okay, I've not done this before.
Moving right along, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, what? Oh,
That'll help you out, yeah.
Okay. Yes, why don't we do that?
okay. So we just had an informal discussion that'll just finish this up since there's only a review and a discussion on the agenda tonight. It's pretty simple, so we'll just get through it. No, back to consent. We have affidavit of posting and then minutes of October, November. Liz, did you say something about the minutes earlier? Okay, so the consent agenda is just for the affidavit of posting minutes to follow next meeting. So is there a motion to approve the affidavit of posting?
So move. I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5, informal project review, D'Ambrosia Vista Project Phase 2. Don, would you like to update us on this?
Yeah, and sure would. Thank you, Chair.
Don, excuse me for a second. I just want to hear a question here. My property is adjacent to this property. Do I need to recuse myself from this discussion? Well, I think,
within the 500 feet.
I think that this project would have a definite impact on my property.
Yeah, I'm afraid you would be within 500 feet. Thanks for pointing that out.
Sorry, Don, does that for mine too? Because I live,
Next door, almost. You're in Creek Bridge.
would I have to recuse myself on this too?
But if it's for discussion in the
Yeah,
vote,
there is no action.
There's no
It's
action.
just a presentation from the developer. Yeah, I think we're okay for just discussion. We
Yeah.
just can't take action. on it.
Just
Right.
discussion.
Right.
Hey, I'm gonna leave.
That's it.
that's just because you want to leave.
Yes.
All right. Okay, Don?
So, in your packet tonight is, some background describing a project considered in 2016. For Third Street near our wastewater treatment plant below the cemetery, the hillside development as it was once known. It's, still continues to be called by the developer the D'Ambrosia, Vista project. And so we described in the staff reports from 2016, 2 phases. Phase 1 lots 1 through 8 that are facing single family homes that were facing Third Street. And then the phase 2 lots 9 through 27 circle behind and on the hillside behind the first row of houses. That map was approved and recorded, and certain conditions were approved as part of that approval, including a development agreement. That map is included in the packet. It's back about 10 pages. You can see how the lots are spread out with a cul-de-sac going into the center of the back 9 through 27 lots. Recently, I would say October, December, the developer has come to city staff and shared different ideas of what they would like to do to build that now, and move this project forward after 8 years. And so we provided in the packet, I'm sorry it was late, a new idea for what the houses might look like actually sitting on the lots in the approved map. And so we have Juggy Tutt and Jan Hoshauser here to share with you the new ideas and to update the planning commission on what the new concepts are for this project. And did you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I'd be delighted to share my screen. I want to say good evening to the commissioners and staff. We appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time with you this evening to share the concepts we want to try to move forward with. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And I'd like to pull up the recorded map. Does everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so these lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are the lots that were previously approved, and the map, was recorded. I take that back. The map was not recorded, but there was a resolution from the council approving this tentative map, and the owner developers, after getting through COVID and a whole lot of other financial issues, would like to go back to get that map reinstated. And our firm has been working on a concept for the housing on what you see here is parcel A behind. So these lots 1 through 8 would be single family lots. And this 9th one would be the access point to the additional development behind. And then I'd like to pull up an exhibit for the commission. If you give me a second here. This is a site plan of the area behind. Now, if I rotate this around, it would be the same orientation. So you can see at the bottom here, this would be where the 9th lot would be the access way to the development behind those 8 lots. And I have also, just as we've been exploring the concepts, this image here, can you see this rendering? This would be one of the typical homes on the 8 lots. So that's the portion that's already been approved in the past. And what I have on this slide and I'll make this full screen as soon as it opens up here. These are some images of the development behind. And I'm going to blow this up so they're much easier to see.
Behind what? I'm lost.
So we have the front. We have the 8 homes along Third Street, and then when he says behind, he's talking about lots 9 through 27.
Yeah. To help out with that, I'll go back to the site plan. So we're talking about 2 portions of one site, and the recorded map, that you see here on my screen.
We can't see it.
Oh, yeah, move it up. There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna blow it up even further. Is that,
Do
and
we have that?
perhaps,
Do we have that,
Yeah,
Where
those-
do we-
no, this one here, the one that you're looking at now, do we have a hard copy of that?
you know, this you should have in the city files, but I did not forward this as part of the presentation tonight. We thought for clarity, we would show the previously approved subdivision and bring everybody up into the history of what was previously approved and what we're talking about as phase two. So just to help the commissioners understand, if you can see these lots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, those have gone through the process and been approved and by council, and there was a resolution of approval. Juggy Tut, who is the owner applicant for that, could answer any questions about the specifics of the history of that process, but the approval has lapsed because of circumstances, both COVID and financial issues. And they, upon our meetings with city staff late last year, they wanted to figure out what would be the pathway to reinstate those 8 lots.
Can you either circle or point to where the roundabout is going to be?
Okay, so the roundabout, if I could help you just draw, and then I'll pull up a better diagram. The roundabout would be like this. The roadway would come in like this.
Jan, sorry, let me just clarify. Are you referring to the roundabout on Third Street?
On Donner and Third?
Yes.
Yeah.
Third.
So that would be directly in right in the middle between lots 4 and 5, right where Donner meets Third.
That's
And
correct.
I don't have a mouse on here. So if you're looking at lots 4 and 5, right where the 3 roads kind of meet and angle in, that's
This is
yeah.
right
there, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So that's where the roundabout would be, and that Third Street would be widened as well.
So will that take away from where the gazebo is?
No.
No.
I don't believe so. I mean, we're just widening Third Street and putting in that roundabout. I don't think we're taking anything down.
Including the eucalyptus tree stumps.
Yes, the stumps come out.
The stumps are gonna go out. Okay.
You could have-
Yeah, and you can see in the retraction of lots 4 and 5, how the roundabout is accommodated. You can see that curve right here.
Okay.
And then what I was showing you, let me erase this, but what I was trying to illustrate was a rendering that I pulled up so you can see what those houses looked like.
And so for those 8 lots, we had 3 different models, model 1, 2, and 3. And there were going to be 3 of one model, 3 of another, and then 2 of the third one. And you can see those 3 models right where Jan just pulled it up. There's a single story and then 2 two-story models. And then when we went through design and review, we took in public comments, we changed designs and colors, as per public comments. We submitted those, everything was permitted, we paid school fees, impact fees, and everything. But then we had, due to some financial reasons, we had to kind of pump the brakes a little bit on this project. But we're ready to pick it back up with the 8 lots plus what Jan is proposing tonight, which is that phase 2 of this project. So in July of 2016, what Planning Commission approved was the ability to phase out this project into phase 1, which is the 8 lots, and then phase 2, which is what Jan will be showing you tonight.
So
Which is-
just to help everybody, that phase 2 area is what we're talking about back here.
Yeah, parcel A, exactly.
Right. Got it now.
And the existing water treatment plant is up above here in this area, up above here. Does that clarify it for everybody where we are?
It does, thank you. I think the question was primarily mine, I was lost. But if I can interject and ask a question of the city manager, so what is exactly the status of any prior approvals granted to lots 1 through 9 today,
What 1 through 8?
or 8?
I've asked that question of the city attorney, and we talked about it today, and he didn't have a reply for me today. And I don't know if Adriana has given that any consideration. I mentioned it about a week ago. But as with her planning background, she may have come across a map like this. Approved by resolution is different than recorded. Is that right, Adriana?
Yeah, so if it hasn't been recorded, it falls into different criteria. My concern is that it's past its ability to be recorded and would have to go back through the process again.
Well, these,
Um,
I'm sorry, but the map as it is was recorded. Jan, if you scroll up on the map, you can
Was
see
recorded.
all the,
Oh, great. Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
you can
great.
see,
Oh, excellent. Okay.
yeah, so it is recorded.
Okay. Great.
Okay, so this map was recorded and the other sections that you were talking about, those were not, or those are also recorded?
Yeah,
Those
so
were
they-
not,
the-
those were just a
the other
tentative map,
section-
yeah.
Yeah, if I may say, the other section was just revealed to staff late last year. We've been working on the concept and we wanted to share it tonight conceptually with the commissioners and planning staff. So
Mhm.
that site plan is this site plan. And what I was doing, if you look, I rotated it upside down so the orientation is the same as the recorded map, so that the 8 lots are below at the bottom of the page. The 8 recorded lots would be down here at the bottom, all along here.
Right.
And the access way is through from that 9th lot that was never created, is right through here. And then this is the concept for the duplex homes behind those 8. And you can see the roadway proposed terminates in this fire department turnaround and kind of community green in the middle.
So are these duplex homes what you would consider affordable housing?
Well, you know, that this would be a recorded subdivision. And the way we've designed this is these are duplexes, but each duplex contains a small junior ADU capability. And that's what we want to present tonight to show you this concept. So I'm going to erase this so you can see that. And so this is
Before we go on, I'm still have some questions on where we are procedurally. So as far as what you have on the screen now, is it Jan or Jan?
it's Jen.
Okay, Jan, so as far as you have on the screen now, those 3, 7, how many units is that?
So you've got 7 and 6, 13. This is 26 single family units or 13 duplexes.
13, okay, that's just, yeah, it's those 13 duplexes. As far as this area is concerned, no approvals have been granted. As to lots 1 through 8 that we looked at earlier, they have
Recorded map.
What's that?
Yeah, on 1 through 8, you've got a recorded map. Those
Right, recorded map. But then there was also some mention made of design review and city council approvals and all that. Just focusing on 1 through 8. And Adriana, maybe you can answer this. As to any prior approvals by the council or those who did the design review and picked out the colors and all that other stuff, however long ago, what is the status of those requirements today?
That's a good question. That would require a deeper dive for us. And even even after me and the rest of my staff come up with a idea of what we feel is correct, we would still ask the attorney to double check it, to be honest.
Okay, so for tonight's purposes, we can assume that we have lots. Because we saw the recording and we have lots 1 through 8, but what they look like and all the rest to be determined. We know that the applicant went through a process on whatever date, but as to the status of that outcome and its finality and so forth today in 2024, we're unsure, but you're gonna check and city attorney's gonna check and let us know, Dawn? Is that-
Yeah, so for the most part, the way that this municipal code is written, the entitlements expire within 1 year after being received. So planning entitlements would have expired 1 year later.
Right.
The only way to extend it out is to pull building permits and have active open building permits, which I imagine those expired at some point if you did pull building permits. So my first gut instinct is that they've expired and they would have to resubmit as a brand new project. So I suppose it's more of a revisit for them to be able to show what was approved back in 2016.
Right.
I don't know if that's
But
helpful.
but that demonstration of what was approved back when would be persuasive but not controlling.
It's just something that happened in the past. Things change. We have like Charlie on, he's at fire. So fire might come through and say there's new regulations as far as the width is concerned for the roundabout. And, so we'd have to like look at that again. That's just one example.
Yeah, and Adriana, another one would be like the building codes have been updated for energy use.
Yeah, exactly.
And seismic, I think on this kind of project and this scale of project, those changes would, per the code, would be rather minimal for like earthquake and even energy use. But there are new standards that have to be adhered to. And every municipality requires, after, the prior permit period has expired, to make sure that the new buildings, even if planning can continue their approval, that the building department would update requirements on the project for the current codes. So we've discussed that and we expect that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, so
I think-
resubmittable
Okay.
would be a brand new review for you guys for the planning commission.
Say that again,
So a resubmission, so they would resubmit
Uh-huh.
and planning would do their part and everybody else would look at it and it'd come through just like it would be a brand new project.
Except that it'd be a brand new project, but they have lots. They have.
Yeah, yeah,
It'd be a brand new project on those recorded lots.
yeah.
But on the part that Jan has up now, there are no lots yet, right?
Correct. This is ground zero with working with
Ground
you
zero.
to
That's
start.
great.
This is a concept that we think is appropriate. We've studied it, we've bent it and twisted it, and we think we're excited about it. We wanted to share it conceptually with planning staff and the commission tonight. Based on our conversations with Don.
We'll take it away, Jan. I feel like I interrupted you a little bit, but it was helpful for me at least to see kind of where are we with the whole
Yeah.
thing, and now I think we all know pretty much where.
Yeah, so this is the site plan that's oriented with of course the south at the top of the page and the north at the bottom. But I flipped this around because of the way the other map was shown, so just to help everybody understand again that those 8 lots are at the bottom. The ones we were just describing that are recorded are at the bottom of this exhibit. And then if I scroll ahead here, I had some like little renderings that help the imagery. That you can see this is kind of looking up the street of this new proposed subdivision, and you're looking at the duplexes and up to the roundabout that's proposed. And here's another view closer to the roundabout. You could see the tree in the middle of that roundabout. And the variety of the forms of the architecture to kind of break it up and make it interesting. And here's another view from further down the street and like across the street from the south looking to the north. And a little bit more information. These are some more exhibits for the architectural massing, just to show how we broke up the architecture to not make it like a monolith and give it some character with a variety of materials and shapes. These are just different views. And then I think of really good interest to the commission and planning staff is this is a ground floor of a typical duplex unit. And you could see at the back, there's kind of like a grandma's unit that meets the state standards for a junior AUD. It could provide a separate living unit for an individual, or it could be part of the family unit, a guest apartment or a grandmother's apartment. And every unit would have a two car garage, plus the ability to have 2 cars on the apron in front of the garage. And you can kind of see like the entry hall and the entry gallery here on the side. When you go up to the next level of the unit, you get the primary living area. You've got a kitchen, family room with a little balcony deck. And then you've got a more formal living area overlooking the street and the garage apron with the entry hall open to below. And then the top level is the residential bedroom component that has a master and 2 other bedrooms. And you can see how the unit is terraced and stepped back over the garage to kind of wedding cake the massing and make it friendly and interesting. And these are just some views that we're cultivating, you know, early on for the concept review.
These are all provided in the packet, Jan, just so you
Yeah,
know.
all of this is part of the packet we sent you, Don.
It was distributed last week for tonight's discussion.
In color.
Well, one of the things we think is really good about the project, if I may go back to the site plan exhibit, is the way we've addressed the grading on the site, because the site is sloping from the north to the south here. And the highest, it's quite at the back here, as you go up to the water treatment plant that we understand is going to be changed to some public amenity, which is really nice. We think that's great. But the sites are kind of tucked in here against that hillside. So you can see the blue lines of the grading. So they're kind of embraced and nestled. And some of that grading is pushed to the property line behind the 8 lots. So there's a terracing across the site, but that works, the topography works in favor of nestling the development. And the middle, where the fire turnaround is really gentle and it's kind of like a community focus. So hopefully fire trucks never have to visit that turnaround, but when they do, it meets their requirements. But short of that, it's a great place for the family members and children to ride their scooters and, you know, have kind of a secure street. That's not a very traffic street, it just handles the traffic of the people that live there.
Okay, Jan, is that it?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it.
right.
I'd be happy, and I know Juggy would too, to answer any questions or defer to whatever the commission would like at this time.
Sure. Well, you came here looking for some feedback, so let's get you some, starting with the Planning Commission. Commissioner Maderos.
Yeah, as far as the Third Street, you mentioned widening Third Street. Does that entail just that portion of Third Street that goes along the property of these units? Because if you go beyond that towards the southern, heading towards town on Third Street, it narrows, where we have to drive like 15 miles per hour from that property going in towards town. When you're widening Third Street, as you indicate, does that include that portion?
Well, I could help with that because I could illustrate where the widening of Third Street occurs. Of course, they have no control over the existing lots beyond this boundary of Lot 1. But this frontage shows where the widening is occurring on Third Street. you can see that area I'm outlining now. I'm sorry, I lost it.
Okay.
In fact,
And it ends right at the end of your development
yes.
and starts, let's say, extending away from the roundabout or traffic circle.
Well, it actually embraces both sides of the traffic circle. So
Right.
there's public improvements on Third Street.
Yeah.
Both north and south of that circle.
Yeah, and the other thing is the on the southern part where you say you're moving or excavating that area in the back there, and if there's a retaining wall that's gonna go in there. And if it is, what do you think the height of that retaining wall will be?
Well, so we're not really planning on much of a wall here. What we're talking about doing is, if I may illustrate, let me change the color
Okay.
to a green. That's more appropriate for the grading. But in the back here, we would be scooping out and grading the hillside down, and then filling along the back here with perhaps a very low wall along there, so that we're kind of creating like a terrace bowl in here. So we're really nestling the development, between the uphill side and the downhill side, more or less right in here.
So our plan.
And then string it out. And again, if I go back to the site plan on that, you can see that better. Let me exit here. And I've got to erase these for you.
Okay, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, you can see the blue lines.
Yep.
That kind of shows the scooping out,
Yeah.
but the way we
Yeah.
did this, we weren't really proposing any walls.
So let's say this considering phase two, so phase one, is there gonna be any trenching there or cutting into or raising or lowering any of that portion of the property?
No, phase one would stay untouched for this improvement.
Okay,
What's nice is you'll have a slope between the property line of phase one. You'll have a slight uphill slope here. That's vegetated with trees and landscaping before you get to the yard space of this second phase.
okay, got it, thank you.
Ida?
Okay, I feel like I did not get my question answered with regards to affordable homes. You said there's an opportunity to have the junior ADU, but does it meet any of the state requirements for affordable housing?
Well, in this kind of development, the affordable requirements are based on the state law, like SB 9, for instance, to grant a property the ability to do a junior ADU or an ADU. But typically the state doesn't require the homeowner or the lot to mandate a rental rate. This is an ownership project. So we're not like proposing like a bonus density or where there's a certain percentage of development that's committed as rental for affordability. We're working within the city standards for subdivision, and we're using the state law to include like a junior AUD as part of the home. And staff might be able to help address that, in terms of what's typically required.
I can add to that. The city's inclusionary housing ordinance does require affordable housing with covenants recorded on the deed for any housing development of more than 6 units. So we'd have to look at the code and work with the developer, but it would require a portion of these to be dedicated.
Great, thank you. And then piggybacking on what Mr. Maderos has asked, with regards to the streets, besides the 2-car garages and the extension or widening of Third Street, what about parking for visitors of these homeowners?
Yeah, so what I pointed out was that we, in addition to the garage cars that are 2 per unit, there is also, we made sure there's enough driveway apron to park an additional 2 cars. in front of each garage. So, you know, you've got the 26 units with 52 cars, and then you can double that 52 to 108 vehicles that could literally be as ownership vehicles in the development. And in addition to that, there would be some availability for parallel parking on the street.
Okay, now I don't know if this is going to be a question for the city or for the development, but where you have lots 1 through 8 with the residential homes, can that be a no parking zone? Because really, if that's the only part that's going to be widened and into Third Street going into town, it's gonna be a mess, which it's a mess now anyway. You know, so are we able to, as a city, mandate that there's no parking in that, on Third Street from Rancho Vista on either side?
We can consider that. I'd like to work with the city engineer and come up with precise measurements, but.
Right, because you also have the roundabout.
uh-huh.
So approaching the roundabout, if there was any parking there and
You
then
would be parking in
exiting.
the roundabout, no.
Yeah,
That's-
no, not in the roundabout. I said approaching, so from Rancho Vista, let's say, and they park prior to the roundabout, and then after the roundabout, it still tightens that area. So just a question, if
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
I
city
understand.
thing or if it's a development thing, that there should be no parking.
That would have to be imposed by the city, I'm sure.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
one other thing I might add is that in addition to all the parking I described, there would be ample, there's some opportunity in the open space of this development to provide some additional guest parking. We certainly intended to provide some little recreational amenities in the green space like you see alongside the roadway here. So we're really comfortable we would meet any standards that typically would be provided for the numbers of cars that can be parked.
Okay, and then, third question is, there was at one point, I can't remember if it was the planning commission or the city council where we were talking about housing and 3 stories. You're proposing a 3-story building, 56 of them, 56 units, right?
Yeah, well, there are actually 16 structures.
Okay,
And each of those structures would be a duplex type structures.
but then
And
3 levels. 3
yes,
stories.
yeah, there would be, like I explained, there would be the lower level, which would be the garage and the junior AUD, and then 2 living levels above it.
Right, I understand that, but I'm asking Dawn, I'm actually asking you, wasn't there a conversation with regards to there was about a 3-story homes, that wasn't something that San Juan Bautista is looking into or would consider?
I'm not familiar with that conversation, so I'd have to check the records. There's generally a height limit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get 3 stories and 65 feet, you're okay. I'm not sure. I'd have to.
Can we
I'd
check
have to
that?
Look at the code, yeah. I just
Yeah.
don't know.
What,
I just aesthetically, 3 stories,
well, one conversation you might be thinking of, I'm not sure about that, Stab, is that which was had when we were going through the housing element update.
right,
And we were talking about the number of infill opportunities there were within city limits. And then we've also had conversations about, on the council, planning commission and what have you, conversations about a desire to not sprawl out onto prime ag or the hillsides and so forth. So that, the age old the philosophical question is, well, then you got to start going up if you don't want to go out. And I'm not saying I have an opinion one way or the other, but that's kind of the debate is, do you go up vertically? And if so, how high?
right.
And that's something that has been discussed. I don't know if
Yeah.
that may be what you're thinking
I
of.
think that is what I'm thinking,
Okay.
but I sense that there wasn't, there was a feeling that 3 stories would not be, something that they would consider, but that's just a
Desirable.
sense. Yeah, desirable.
Mhm.
Well, can I interject? Because we thought about that and we feel the way we've articulated these buildings, that they're not a visual impediment towards that end. Plus, when you deliver like a certain percentage of affordability, as Don is suggesting, the state grants you concessions such as height above and beyond your standard zoning ordinances. So in every community that we're working in developing housing, where it's such a crisis, that if you provide that certain component of affordability that the state is looking for, you get to ask for that extra height. And I believe we can do a great job working with this commission to make beautiful buildings here where their height is not a problem. And I'm agreeing with the other commissioner's statement that it's kind of a critical tool when you're talking about infill and the need to develop the housing to kind of insist that everything stay at 2 stories. It just forces less available, even within this existing development, it would force the situation into less available green and open space. So we think it's a preferable solution. We've spent time looking at it both ways, and we think this is appropriate. But you, of course, are the decision makers and will have to kind of consider all those factors.
Correct. Thank you.
Well, I think going forward, we need to just be prepared to talk to that
Be what? Say again?
on the 3-story.
Be
Be prepared to talk to it.
Yeah, we'll
Have to
do
go
our homework.
forward
Yeah.
in a positive direction to, with the development.
No, I agree. I just didn't hear the words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, one other thought too is that these are not full 3 stories, they're partially 3 stories, as I try to illustrate.
Okay, David, I thank you. I guess it's my turn. I just had a quick question for Adriana. I keep wanting to call you Ariana, like Grande.
Close enough.
Are you a good singer like Ariana Grande is?
No, no,
No.
nobody
You
wants
won't,
to hear
you
me
won't
sing.
admit it if you were.
Everybody will run out of the room at that point.
Did I see somewhere in the materials that this is going, I'm talking not lots 1 through 8 or 9 that already has the map, but this new area is a PUD?
They can apply. I don't think that it was approved as a PUD, but I don't know without looking at their original approval documents.
But on this piece that's on the screen now, I thought we agreed at the very beginning that there were no approvals
Right, this is
applicable.
the second lot, Adrian.
Yeah, no, yeah, they can apply for a PUD. Meg just texted me letting me know that it was originally approved as a PUD, so they can resubmit in the same way.
Okay. Well, just for Jan and I think one of the owners is on as well. I love PUDs. I love the flexibility that they provide. I love the whole concept of a dedicated open space, green space, recreational amenities that I think Jan spoke to a little bit. So I would be very supportive of the PUD, pursuing a PUD concept. I can also tell you, if you're, Jen, like I said, if you're looking for feedback, I like the density. And I'm not one to say that very often, but I do think this is, I do think this, while living in San Juan, you know, we don't like density kind of in general, but I think this is an opportunity to provide some infill housing that we need to meet our arena numbers and otherwise. And I like the ADUs on the first floor. And as the city manager pointed out, we can ensure that some of those are restricted to low income and different income brackets per the San Juan ordinance, put deed restricted. So what don't I like? I don't like, Jen, and I hope I'm not gonna hurt your feelings. Well, and if I am, I have a good recovery. I don't like the front facades, the front elevations. Specifically, well, let me start with the good news. I love your breakup of the massing that you mentioned, with doing different gabled ends here and there and doing different levels. I think that is all just terrific because it does not look monolithic, as you pointed out. And I think you did yeah, see those kind of dormer things that come out with the ridges. Great. No problem. Oh, is this on the conflict issue?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that John? Okay. That's pretty awesome. How you like on the spot?
It's economical.
Yeah, so for the public's benefit, we just had a question from this or discussion with the city manager and the city attorney and one of the planning commissioners. So Jan, I love the breaking up the massing and so forth. Can we look at the front facades, the front elevations, not facades, front elevations?
You mean a good example,
Yeah.
like,
A little bit more. I think there's a better one.
okay, let me see if I can get it to scroll down. I'm gonna blow it up and then scroll it down.
Yeah. So I'd love this design for Venice Beach, maybe. Or maybe Santa Monica. But and I think really as I drill down in my critique, if you will, it's that thing that's above the driveway, that kind of pop out. It's got a gabled in on it, but it stands proud of the rest of the elevation.
Yeah.
That might be the thing that looks very modern to me.
Mhm.
I love it. I think you might even win an award for that design in a different community, but I'm trying to be mindful of the design vibe, if you will, in San Juan Bautista, which tends to skew more traditional, more maybe historic, different types, arts and crafts and Queen Anne and Board and Batten and that kind of thing. You might look at the property to the north of you, a subdivision we did back in the 90s called Creek Bridge, which incorporates a lot of different San Juan type architectural styles. So I love that design for a different community. I don't know that I would say, yeah, that's San Juan. It does not look like San Juan to me, just from a purely aesthetic point of view. And with all the other great things I said about it, notwithstanding the massing and the roof lines and everything, I think you did a terrific job with.
Well, I want to assure you that, this is very young and it is really just an extension of the massing at this point. So I think we're on a good road to kind of articulate it and detail it in a way that addresses the history of San Juan. And what I'd like to share with the community and the commission, that my visits to San Juan Bautista have always been something where I enjoyed the surrounding countryside. It's truly amazing to be at the mission there and get a sense of where you are. And so that's a good pitch for when you're thinking about infill, because San Juan Bautista is made by what surrounds it. And, addressing that both architecturally and the detail and the texture of these buildings, as well as the, infill aspect of it so people can live there, I think is a good approach for our effort here.
I agree. Here. So yeah, and I think that those front elevations might be tweaked a little just to look more fitting within the community, then that would be my only comment for now. February 6, 2024. So if there are what's that?
I wanted to thank you guys for the time tonight and the commentary. We appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for bringing this forward. And I can't speak to prior commissions or any other communities, but that you may do business in, but we hope to keep the lines of communication open. And because I think with that comes a better project, a better product delivered. So planning commission, open public comment. I see Kara's hand is up. She turned in a speaker card, I believe, right, Liz?
She did.
Kara?
Thank you. I think I sat through two prior iterations of this project, so I have some history. I'm just wondering if the project people ever saw our design guidelines for new single-family neighborhoods, because it doesn't really follow our guidelines. I'll just read you a couple of, and I'm interested in the aesthetics, okay? Traditional grid-style streets with short rectangular or square blocks are preferred for new neighborhoods. Suburban curvilinear streets, cul-de-sacs, T-turnarounds, gated and/or dead-end streets should be avoided. new project street should connect with existing city streets to form a continuous network of streets whenever possible. So this has got the big cul-de-sac on that upper area. Also, I'm very concerned about those huge garages on blocks 1 through 8 and also up on the hill. This is also from the design guidelines. Individual entries should have a strong relationship with a fronting street feature. Oh, let's see, sorry, these are my notes. Features living space as the primary element rather than allowing garage doors to dominate. And if you look at Creek Bridge, that's what they did. They put the garages at the back of the lot. When you look at Creek Bridge, you see the front door, you see the porches, you see the house. You don't see a big flat garage door. Also in these photos, there was no, what do they call it? A parking strip. So there should be grass between the sidewalk and the street, which should have street trees on it. That's how Creek Bridge was built. And they should also can look at the Mission Gardens because that was also designed with community input. That also has a big parking strip, grass in front with trees. And I think originally they planted these pear trees, these flowering pear trees. They're supposed to be very tall and big, but they didn't do very well. So
At the Mission Garden Apartments.
yeah. I mean, I can just go on and on. Front porches, the building materials should be different. We made a real mistake with the new one. Sorry. Yeah, they're all stucco. Every one of those looks like a stucco box. If you look at Creek Bridge, we've got siding, we've got some stucco, we've got Spanish eclectic.
She can go a little bit more.
Oh, 3 minutes, sorry. You know, and they had 5 different building styles, whereas Mission, sorry, Rancho Vista, I think only has 3 or 4 building styles. So I really urge them to look at Creek Bridge and Mission Gardens, because the Mission Gardens, they all have front doors that face the street. They've got little porches, some are singles, and then they've got the upper, you know, multiple.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, when you talk about the 3 levels, maybe not exactly 3 stories, this is on a hillside. So these buildings are going to look even bigger because they're up high, and they're going to be looming over these small houses, these older small houses along 3rd Street. So that's something to take into consideration.
We'll have to take in consideration.
And then earlier, on one of the earlier ones, there were big retaining walls on that hillside. I don't know, now apparently they're going to do some grading, but you know, between the 8 and the new area, I think there were big, pretty tall retaining walls. So there's a lot to think about. And I think it could be a beautiful project if people just really take the time to look at the aesthetics. Like we did with the Arco gas station. Thank you. So they should look at the design guidelines. We've got this book that people spend a lot of time on. Thank you.
Creek Bridge didn't happen by accident. I'll say that. No. David, anything else? Or before we do that, any other members of the public, any raised hands, Liz?
See no hand raised on Zoom.
Okay, then public comment is closed. Back to the commission. David, did you have something?
No. No.
No. Okay.
No, I'm just gonna wait for, see what it looks like finally.
A little bit further.
You know,
Sounds like there'll be more opportunities for that.
yeah.
Okay.
I think we got some good things going on.
Yeah, I think it's a good
Well,
start of
the
a
only,
good discussion.
the only thing I keep thinking about San Juan, as unique it is as it is, it's pretty diverse when it comes to aesthetics.
Mhm.
So, you know, that in itself is historic. a historical resource.
Mhm.
So that's something that should go into every project, is to remember that, you know, it wasn't just one style that we built here.
Right.
And we do have, because of the age of the town, there's been so much diverse change
Right.
over the years that's been captured in historically. And, you know, we could say that with every structure that we build new. Somehow, it's its diversity as well. But yet, you know, when you think about our guidelines, you really need to look at that. And maybe we should look at our guidelines even closer. See if we, where are we going with this in the future? And to capture the uniqueness of San Juan Bautista, because it can be something that inspires not just for us, but for other communities outside of our community.
Mhm.
And not only that, it economically, it brings in, you know, anybody can live here. Different economic levels or for people, and, you know, first time buyers and that kind of a thing, rather than have just one type of structure that serves just only certain people, but we serve all people. And I think this project is going a long way to help that. And I'd like to be a part of that too as well.
Right.
So thanks for your drawings. Thanks for the work that you put in and listening to us, and going forward. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anything further?
No, I just want to say thank you for the clarifications and answering my questions.
Yeah, David, I just want to, I'd be remiss if I didn't tag on to what you just said. So about the eclectic nature of design in San Juan Bautista and therefore the difficulty in articulating that. And I would submit that our design guidelines are, but it's a tough thing to articulate in design guidelines or otherwise. So hard that I remember back in the Creek Bridge days was Hugh and Bob Bickle. And they asked the simple question, which do they look like? And I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe a little this, because there isn't one style in San Juan that predominates. So Hugh Bickle said to his architect, I want you to drive down to San Juan Bautista, pick Dan DeVries up in front of his house and spend the day with him. Dan, I want you to show him every house you think is great. And I said, seriously? Yeah, I can do that. So me and this guy, I forget the guy's name, drove around in his Tahoe. And if you go in Creek Bridge now, you can probably pick out, like, I think I know where that house is. There's Board and Batten, there's Mediterranean, there's Arts and Crafts, to try to capture what you're talking about, David. And I think they did a pretty good job of it. And I see, Jan, you guys are from Santa Barbara, and I know you have kind of the same thing going on there, but so you might think of all the arts and crafts residences up by the Mission in Santa Barbara versus the Mediterranean and the other parts of town. And it's kind of the same idea, but here it's just more constant, it's more concise because we're not that big. So you see these different styles all over the place. And how do you emulate?
We'll explore that more and discuss that more as we move forward with you on the project. But
Right.
the one anecdote I think is worth mentioning, a community that I really enjoy, like Santa Fe, New Mexico,
Yeah.
has got some of the strongest design guidelines in the world. But
In the
a lot of
planet.
people, when they visit there, they feel like they're in bedrock. If you go out and into the residential areas of Santa Fe, it's like the Flintstones. So I
Yep.
think you've got to be careful with mandating like a consistency across the board.
Well, that's
But-
right. But that's Santa Fe. I mean, you know, whether it's a Chevron station or a Kentucky Fried Chicken, it's going to be Adobe with a flat roof. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But you know, that's not this. And I think what David or Commissioner Medeiros articulated is very valid and very true. And as I pointed out, the Creek Bridge development showed us, proof of concept. It is possible to emulate the San Juan style of all different things all together harmoniously with 40-inch London plane tree box trees, by the way. Hugh tried to say 15-gallon. I said, no, 15-gallon, 40-inch box trees. That's why they're so big and beautiful now, because we started with nice specimens. So if you want if you want to do it right, you gotta spend the time to get the details down.
I agree.
Yeah, and one more thing too, we haven't talked about going solar, going solar or going, wind resources, going green.
Mhm.
Is there gonna be something said to this development where we can have a conversation when it comes to structure, when it comes to planning for the future?
Well-
Are we gonna be less dependent on fossil fuels? And how are we gonna do that with this development,
Well, Jan,
so to speak?
You're gonna build to LEED silver anyway, aren't you?
Platinum.
Platinum. Well, there you go. So they're planning on doing a lot of that already.
I have to go on the record there that I better not make that commitment just yet.
Well, not the platinum part, but certainly LEED silver. I think California Building Code almost gets you LEED silver these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, it's pretty stringent.
Yeah. Okay, any other planning commissioner comments? Jan, hopefully that was helpful to you. Keep the lines of communication open. Let us know how we can be of assistance in the future. Otherwise, thank you for showing up tonight.
Thank you very much. Good night.
You bet. Okay. What? Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you. I keep losing it somewhere. Here we go. Thank you very much. Give you respect. Okay, next item on the agenda is number 6 for discussion, preliminary draft zoning ordinance amendment to 11-04. Don, I assume that's something you want to present on?
Do we want to invite Tony back in, or do we not have it?
I don't know, where is he anyway? Just sitting outside?
It's
He
cold.
went home?
He's left his book.
All right. That's a long time to be sitting out there. No.
Oh, okay, okay.
Would you say Liz he is or is not? He's home. Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Is he on Zoom?
Okay, so we'll just continue with the 3
Yeah, we have
commissioners.
one.
Okay, Chair.
Yep.
The report that's in your packet tonight is a repeat. It was in your packet back November 7th, and in discussion with especially Commissioner DeVries, he suggested that this come back to the commission with its new member and be reviewed again before it went forward to the council. We had a subcommittee established to review the zoning ordinance. And I'll say that the purpose of the zoning ordinance is to allow temporary uses to occur on properties. So the issue came up last summer with food trucks at a coffee shop. And now we have other things being sold at the same coffee shop under a temporary use permit. This would be a way of structuring that into our zoning code and to make it legal and to make our zoning code more flexible for a variety of uses of different properties. Pardon me. So it is an update to the zoning code that addresses, for example, if you're to have a food truck on your property and you're not a restaurant or approved as a conditional use permit for a food truck, that you could have that for 2 or 3 consecutive days, and then it would have to leave the property and it could come back, but it wouldn't be of a permanent nature. It would be just of a temporary nature. So this would codify those exceptions. And I did share this with our planning staff, Adriana, and I know that she had some thoughts on it. So I might just ask Adriana how she felt about it and what she thought as a new set of eyes, if the commission's okay with that.
Great, Adriana. What would you like to
Well,
add?
Not much actually, because it was previously drafted by the prior planner.
Mhm.
And I suppose this is the easiest path forward to allow this to continue, because I do believe it's been expired. So based on the information provided, I think it seems like the simplest path forward for us, rather than going back to the drawing board.
Okay.
the real issue is, it's stated right on the front page, all uses shall be constructed entirely within an enclosed building. So to have someone selling jewelry at Hardina's or tie-dye t-shirts, out on their back patio or a food truck that's not enclosed inside the building.
Right. Back in those days, we also talked about existing uses that are not all entirely conducted within, like I'm thinking about the Smoke Point and his big old smoker barbecue thing back there. That's business being conducted outside.
Yeah.
You don't want to bring that big smoker thing indoors. But one thing I'm not clear about, Don, is recommended actions. Review the attached preliminary draft zoning ordinance amendment. Do we have any kind of a red line or something showing what the former was and what the new proposed language is? When I was going through this, I didn't understand what's the new part.
What's the new part?
Yeah.
As I'm looking at it, page 5, for example, you'll notice number 3 at the top of page 5 is darker. That language appears to be new.
4, 5.
Yeah, I'm asking myself the same question, Commissioner DeVries. I thought this was a red line version, but I suppose it's not, so.
Well, just, how about this? How about to move the ball forward on this topic? Because Adriana, when you said something's expiring, are you referring to those tulip things?
They're temporary,
Yeah.
Yeah, those, okay.
Yes.
But yeah, we need to do something, but to move the ball forward, could I suggest, subject to what my fellow commissioners think, to get a red line and then authorize the subcommittee, which I can tell you was Jose and I are the ones that
It
met.
is, yeah.
We were the ones to meet with all the business owners at Vertigo and did all that stuff, and then met with Don and Brian also. But anyway, find out what is being proposed as new.
Correct.
And then Jose and I can go sit between now and the next meeting, can go sit down with Dawn and Adriana, if she wants to be there. So they can tell us, okay, here's what's new. And then we can provide some feedback so that when it comes back to the planning commission in March, it's in pretty good shape.
Sounds fair.
What do you think, David? You like that idea? You like that idea, Don?
Yeah, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right.
We'll be all on the same page.
Okay, super. All right. And I don't think that requires any action. That'll just be the idea, yeah. Okay, and then we have 8. That's it. That's 6. Okay. Then therefore, we will entertain a motion to adjourn to the March Planning Commission hearing in HRB. March 6th.
Sure, I was gonna share just a couple quick updates.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over city management comments. My bad, Don.
We don't have to go through the
You think
slides.
I've never done this before.
There are some slides in your packet. We've introduced already the new community development staff that we have. Fortunate to have Adriana on board. Former community development director acting in Hollister and in Santa Barbara. We are focusing on current planning and the 2 ordinance revisions that we've looked at tonight, the historic, the preservation code and the tulip process. Economic development efforts are being reconsidered. There'll be a topic of discussion for our city council when we review our mid-year budget in a couple weeks. And the special event applications are now being filed with the city manager. And to that end, we have a Warner Brothers production coming at the end of this month. As many as 200 people will be here. Warner Brothers is filming a movie at the State Historic Park between the Zeller building and the bar and the hotel. So they'll be busy in and around 2nd Street for the next couple of weeks, building sets and so forth, and then they'll actually be filming February 25 through 28. And they're filming at night, so the street won't be closed until 6 p.m. So there'll be access through here, but it should be pretty cool.
Can I ask a question on that? I know a lot of jurisdictions have like even a film department or something. And we don't obviously, but is there any opportunity for the city to charge fees for people who want to make movies here?
Well, we were renting our community hall for 2 weeks.
Well, good.
Yeah, that's $600 a shot. We don't have any specific filming fees.
Alright.
When I worked closer to Burbank, we did have a whole set of filming,
I'll bet.
film permit studios, yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
so there's nothing in particular. I do know that, that they've been very generous, with, the mission and some of the other actors, so. Yeah, we have the draft housing element, that was sent to HCD in September, and the comments were returned in December. And they're pretty extensive, and I reached out, to the consultant today to see how we were doing. They're due back to the State Housing Community Development by April, so we've got to get to work, and you can expect to see that again. We did resubmit a Caltrans Sustainability Grant for the Third Street transformation, another $300,000 effort. That was due December 31st, so fingers crossed for our Third Street master plan that we're working on. We are reorganizing public safety, which means the code enforcement is being reorganized as well, and that's an important part of our planning commission and community development. We sent a letter offering a new public safety coordinator position, full-time position to work for the city. And under that position will be a community services officer, and they'll help us with code enforcement as well as traffic and parking. But for the commission's benefit, this is going to greatly improve our code compliance, our planning codes. So, sure.
So that conversation next month at the HRB about out of compliance signs and so forth is a pretty nice segue to
That's a
that.
great segue, sure.
Perfect, great.
Sure. We have our ADU improvement program out there, and that's tied to grant money that needs to be spent by the end of March. So we've only had 2 applications received so far. We're trying to help persons with ADUs that are not compliant with the building code and so forth, up to $15,000 a piece to fix their units up. So I'm trying to promote that and get that out there. But I also received word this week from HCD that we could apply that money towards a homeless project that we also identified. So I've reached out to public health in the county to see if we could get into a contract before the March deadline comes, because we want to keep the $75,000 in our city, of course. Some of the project status, I believe the gas station is back on track again. The hydrologist that the city is working with is working with the engineer for the gas station and moving forward. I don't know, Adriana, do you have anything to add on the gas station? I haven't heard from their designer recently.
Nothing, no updates there. They are cooperating with our engineering and with the request for a hydrology study for that area.
Do you think it's possible we could see that at the commission in March?
Ooh, maybe. I mean, if everything goes well and they submit everything that we need, we had sent them a healthy list of items that we needed to
Okay,
review their project. So given if they submit those soon, possibly.
okay, great. Well, just that I think we've rebuilt some trust and confidence in with the commission's help, of course, in the design they're charging ahead. That's my impression. No news is good news. Casa Rosa, we did extend their building permit to June 30th, so it wouldn't expire. We worked with the owner on their stormwater pollution prevention program, especially during the rains. But it's still not certain when they're gonna get back to work on that project. I do understand there's some work happening on the old Neal's Market on Muckalemme, but that project's kind of crawling along as well. We don't have any news to offer, just we are monitoring the projects that are just gonna sit there, so. Okay, that's my 2 cents.
That was a great report. I'm feeling even more badly that I forgot to mention it.
Okay. 8 o'clock was my goal.
Doing a lot.
Yeah, aren't we all?
Don, you're doing a good job.
Here, here. Any other questions, comments, anybody? No, then we will entertain a motion to adjourn at
Motion to adjourn.
8 o'clock.
I'll second it, and I want to thank staff, welcome Andrea and Magda, our new people that are working with us, and thank staff for all the hard work they're doing, and our wonderful public for attending tonight. Thank you.
Public, singular. Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, wait, on the motion to adjourn, all in favor, aye, all opposed.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. See you in March.
Is the movie actor Leonardo DiCaprio, or however you pronounce it? Huh?
Vinci.
DiCaprio.
Facebook today, I think.
Somebody said he was the acting in whatever movie this is.
It is. If you Google, Leonardo DiCaprio, you'll find that they've been filming in Eureka and in Stockton, and there's articles, and ABC News is doing stuff on it. So
What kind of genre do you know?
it's the contemporary show, father-daughter story. I didn't think he was old enough to be a father, but I guess he is.
Take care of it. Don't forget where we live.